So we have how many districts now?
254.
254.
Plus 5. So 259.
Nearly 260.
260, let's say.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do not, in my mind's eye, or look into the crystal ball, I do not see this administration executing 260 factories by 2020. What I mean by fully established, completed factories by 2020. In all honesty, I don't see it happening. But I see them making an effort to start some factories. And if they did across the country, even 100, and to borrow the NDC cliché, at various stages of completion by 2020, I would think they would have done a lot to propel this country's industrialization crusade. That's the way I see it. Mr. Alan Shramante went to Parliament not too long ago to answer a question that was posed by Mr. Richard Kwashiga. And he presented to Parliament the full details of where they are then, at the moment, at that time. And I brought the Hansard here before. I was impressed with how they had gone about it in terms of timelines, in terms of feasibility studies, in terms of support from the local banks as well as the Chinese, it's a Chinese company, I've forgotten the name immediately. A Chinese entity, they are collaborating with the AGI and some local banks, including the Ghana Exim Bank and the rest here, in terms of the financials. So it is not as if nothing is happening at all. Indeed, if you read that document, which a copy of which I didn't bring here, you will see at different levels where processes have started. So clearly, it isn't as if it was a mere slogan. I think they are implementing the program all right, but they have to be modest. A lot of challenges have occurred, so I cannot imagine them coming up with 260 factories. The same way I saw the NDC's agenda relative to the 200 community day schools. Indeed, my research indicates that they actually signed contracts for only 124. And by the time they were exiting, they had executed about 40 in a matter of 4 years. It's because it's not an easy thing. Ideally, it's good that they said, look, this is what we wanted to do. I even said if they did 50, I would think it was creditable. Even the 40-something they did, I still think has helped in our educational drive. Indeed, last time we considered here that but for it, perhaps they would even have more serious difficulties with the implementation of the free SHS. So Randy, as far as I'm concerned, they are on course, but they will not be able to deliver 216. I'll be surprised, really, really surprised if by 2020, this administration would have delivered 260 or 50-something factories in the country. I don't think it is going to happen. And the earlier they checkmate themselves and be modest in how they communicate, the better for the administration's own integrity. But something is definitely happening in the field, and it's important. Perhaps they should enhance their communication, and communication that they will take the media and civil society to locations where things are happening. The media, of course, on its own. You remember Peace FM did on their own, going around the country to size up what the NDC administration was doing relative to the schools. I believe the media on its own should get a list that Mr. Alan Shramante presented to Parliament, including the one that the Minister of Finance has captured in the budget. And then we do monitoring and evaluation to see if indeed something is happening, and then put pressure on them. But as far as I'm concerned, they will not be able to deliver the 260.
Randy, again, if I may, you see, the points that Mr. Baako make are valid if we're being truthful and candid. But you see, there's a particular context to this debate that we cannot ignore. What has become a problem for the MPP is their insistence, despite significant pushback. Look, if at the time they were making the promise, they were not that specific and were modest to acknowledge the shortfalls, the challenges, and the bottlenecks that come with implementing programs as a government, especially taking into consideration our resource envelope and its limitations and all that, I don't think we'll be having this debate. So, as for impact of some contribution that they will make, it will be there. There's no government that has come, even including the military government that we like to berate, that has not made a contribution to national development. In fact, the Liman administration, which is the shortest lived, if I'm not mistaken,
both would do share the same time,
absolutely,
27 months.
Absolutely. All of them made a contribution one way or the other. But you see, it is not the contribution itself that is factored in. It is about what you promise. Otherwise, there's no point for the competition that we engage in the run-up to elections. There were competing narratives, competing ideas, competing philosophies that came to play. When they made a promise, they were questioned, they were scrutinized. In some instances, they evaded the scrutiny and still managed to convince people that they will be able to do it. Randy, even when they have been in government, they have been completing. Well, the president recently, I think last week or so, was quoted as saying that he will not leave a single promise behind. He will fulfill all of them. It's the third time that I've heard him say that. Earlier this year, at a business roundtable, the senior minister, Mr. Osafo, made the point that Mr. Baako is making about the fact that he thinks that they will not be able to build 216 factories as possible, but they may be able to build 100 or so. But for the voter, and for those of us who operate in the political space and who cautioned against this one, it will not be sufficient. We are not looking for impact or contribution. We are looking for the fulfillment of the promise. You see, it is important so that politicians like myself and everybody else do not take the electorate for granted. What we must discourage, okay, is coming to the table to make flowery promises and say things that you are incapable of fulfilling only to win votes. Otherwise, there's no business, or we have no business as politicians going to the people. So until we begin to hold politicians strictly accountable for their promises, especially those who make outrageous promises that everybody sees to be outrageous and still insist that they will be able to do it. Because deception, which is what really we are discussing here, deception, cannot be tolerated in public life. So as for the MPP, they had better fulfill the promises in the shape that they said they would do it, or they will suffer electoral consequences, especially at a time when our electorate has become so conscious and so aware of their rights and what they need to demand from politicians. So it is a cap that they have to carry, unless they wave some magic wand and fulfill it.
Well,
and about the Chinese bit, you recall that there was a time that we were told that $400 million had been secured from a Chinese entity to go into, or to pump into this drive. And yet there's no sign of that $400 million in this discussion. So what exactly has been informing the positions that they take? Why can they not come to a particular position where they tell us consistently what they will be able to do?
Well, at least I heard
Madam
Kunedu say, in reference to the 2 billion China AGI thing, that the conditions that the Chinese put out were not in the interest of Ghana, and so they had abandoned that and they were looking at our
Randy,
local
the
banks.
same gift, if you Google her, I think on 17 June 2017 or so, insisted that they had all the money that they needed,
Randy,
including the Chinese money. So really, why this conflicting narrative?
you will not see any Chinese money walking on the streets. You will see it.
Okay. So where is it?
It isn't that. It doesn't mean the money is not available.
So where is it? Is it available? Is it in some account that we can see?
But I've told there is this arrangement with some local banks here. And the AGI.
Let me rephrase. So are you saying for certain that you know?
So you will see the money around here.
Are you saying for certain that you know that some local banks and the AGI have liaised with the Chinese entity and some monies have been received for it?
I am aware of that. That's why I told you. Even some of these things are part of the presentations that have been made out there. It's a fact.
So clarity's sake, I beg your pardon, clarity's sake, you are saying that as we speak, there are at least 1 or 2 local banks that have received money from China in the name of this project.
There are some local banks that on their own have.
Yeah, but that is different. That is okay.
Yeah, but that's money.
Fine.
Which you don't see on the streets.
But have those monies been disbursed?
No, I'm saying that no.
No, the banks, the the banks have a criteria.
Yes.
There are banks who say that
we've
devoted 100 million to one
yes,
D1F.
UMB said that.
And so
GCB said they had
and they have processed some of the companies.
And so they've set up desks at the place.
Good.
The last time we were speaking about it, the issue that came up, I got a source from a bank who sent me the info that the problem is that those companies are expected to raise collateral. And that government was not
willing
guaranteeing those loans. And so it looks like it is a bit of a problem for some of the
in terms of the policy, government is committed to guaranteeing some aspects and also provide some infrastructure to back it.
Access routes
and
but in terms of accessing the monies at the bank, you just don't go there and say that my proposal has been approved by Ministry of Trade. So I need 10 million.
No, it's not done. But we all know it's not done.
So what then goes into the approval by the ministry and government? So it
is feasible.
It comes back to conceptualization and implementation. You see, government is not an entity to be joked with. So you don't just get up and send proposals and expect to receive approval.
As you speak to this issue, Dr. Manibuama says that, please remind Kweku Baako, quote, at various stages of completion, sent NDC into opposition because the NPP refused to accept that argument.
Exactly.
Well, I think Felix made a similar point here about non-fulfillment of promises being the basis for the verdict. I agree with that in principle. But again, going to an election is a basket of issues. It's not just one track. So people will combine all the things you've done. And I used to say this relative to the NDC administration when you were talking of infrastructure. Whilst I considered that was good, I told you there's a basket of issues out there. Man shall not live by bread alone. That is there. So yes, the same thing is going to happen.
But right now, the bread is extremely scarce too. Well, so the basket is really leaking.
It depends on which kind of bread.
This debate can
daily bread.
20th till
December 2020.
We can have an endless thing. But as for promises that you make in a determined way, but you fail to deliver, it's not peculiar to the MPP anyway. Where did one-term premium take NDC?
Yes.
But don't forget they won 2012 election.
Because
in spite of the non-fulfillment of that, because there were other issues that may have come together to give them the victory. That's the point.
But that's a significant difference. I beg your pardon. That's a significant. You see, when we came into power and did our actuarial studies and found that the one-term premium implementation was going to pose a greater problem than the status quo, we leveled up with the people. We told them that is not something.
I don't recollect that. No.
Madam Shariaite was the health minister at the time. I think Madam Shariaite was the health minister at the time. We did. Oh, you may not have heard, but that is the point.
My brother, I did not recollect.
It was not. On the contrary,
how about one district, one stadium, one district?
Oh, but we built stadiums.
Oh, you said one stadium,
yes,
one district. That time we had about 186
yes, we didn't.
Districts.
Yes,
it didn't happen.
When we promised, I said we didn't. I said we didn't.
Okay.
But when
these things happen.
But when we promised to build 200 schools, and we worked on over 100, as you said.
No, you signed contracts for only 124.
40 were about 50 were completed by the time we left.
No, about 47.
46, yes. So completed by the time we left. Others had come up.
For me, it was.
Others had come up. You could see them today. When you go, you see them at the state where we left them.
Various stages
of completion. The flag bearer, the man who is president today, mocked it. He said we could not fulfill it. And Randy,
so you also
I drew in his insistence that he will fulfill all the promises for a reason. To put it in context, the man is still saying that he will fulfill every promise
so
that is made.
2020,
if he has not fulfilled it, he must
the Honorable Dr. Clement Park says, are you aware that no business promoter has shown interest in establishing a factory in the Upper East region? The Minister of Trade said it on the floor of Parliament. Sadly, it's the poorest region in Ghana with very limited economic and employment opportunities. Yeah, but so clearly the 1D1F is in limbo.
Randy, that presupposes that government itself will be doing no economic development in that region. It doesn't. Do you understand? Government will be doing things there.
But the Upper East region also has districts. So why did government or why did the MPP promise a factory in every district when they had not done any studies to see whether it was viable in the Upper East region? Or
Malik Adama says anytime you ask for the factories or one village, one dam, they insult you. The vice president is the leader. What happened to the 350 SHS they promised to build? Have they started?
Which one?
350.
If I were in government, a reasonable government, a wise government, I will not embark on 350 or so schools when there are balances left with the 200, which I have to deal with first. You have to finish those projects before you even start talking about 350.
Mr. Baako, they knew of the state.
No,
of the
you were in
projects.
opposition.
Yes,
The government was
they
building.
knew.
The government said was building 200.
Yes.
Now, if I have taken over,
But Mr. Baako,
I should stop
okay.
the 200.
No, oh, no,
And go and
no,
do
oh,
300.
No, that's not what has been said.
It makes sense to continue
Yes.
the 200. Finish
That's
it.
not what has been said. But you could have said in opposition that when I come, I will continue what they are doing.
It's not.
You said you will build
you know
350.
politics. That's not the way.
Yeah. So if you do politics,
I
you get
beg
paid.
we need
is not
to
the way
fair
it's
justices
It's
from the point
unreasonable.
from the point where I knew the case against the referendum being restricted to residents of enclaves or proposed new regimes was dead on arrival, because the line of argument being advanced by the plaintiffs was very much akin to a man who's had his testes removed through a surgical procedure, turning around to claim biological ownership of the pregnancy of a woman whom he only sees in his dreams.
Where is this from?
Vintage Fanti.
Yeah, he has a funny way of